Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Scary again. Ugh. I wasn't planning on doing another video today until I ran into a guy down the street from me. I walk on these nice days. Cincinnati today, it's almost 70. This guy down the street knows me. He knows that I like horse racing. He knows that I fly a Kentucky Derby flag out in my front yard every year between the beginning of April to the second week of May, because the Derby is the first weekend in May. And he was saying, "Hey, you gonna fly that flag again?" Real sarcastic. I said, "Well, I was planning on it. Why? You interested in horse racing?" He goes, "No, that's got to be the dumbest sport I think I've ever seen." I said, "Have you ever watched a horse race?" Because he's got two kids in high school. They play soccer. He goes, "That's not really a sport, is it?" That's what he said to me. Okay, that's not really a sport, is it? And he's about my age. I said, "You're kidding me, right? It's not a sport?" He goes, "Well, how hard can it be?" That was the next line. He goes, "How hard can it be?" I said, "Let me break it down for you, Gus." I said, a thoroughbred racehorse is 1,200 pounds of nothing but solid muscle. Think about that. He is twisted steel and muscle. That's all he is. Zero body fat on a horse. And you got a jockey that weighs no more than 118 pounds, and he is solid muscle. He might have 2% body fat. He's got legs like tree trunks. I said, "Are you keeping up with me, Gus?" And his mouth is like. I said, "So if you think your son's sport, your sons that play soccer, that's a team sport, you think if they're in good shape, think of the shape a jockey has to be in." He goes, "Well, I'm listening. How tough can it be?" I said, "You're not following me. The only time they're sitting on the horse is when they're walking up to the gate being the starting gate. And if you haven't seen a race, check it out. They go in these little cages, starting gates that open up, and when the bell rings, they take off. They take off. A thoroughbred racehorse, and this is a fact, a thoroughbred racehorse goes from 0 to 35 to 40 miles an hour in 8 strides or less. That fast. They're machines. They're built for speed. They're forward motion animals. Of all the horse breeds in the world, the thoroughbred racehorse is a freak show. Like I said, solid muscle, and they're very temperamental. They're hyperactive. They're freak shows. If you don't know how to ride a horse, don't get on a fucking thoroughbred. You'll regret every minute. So I said to this guy, Gus, I said, jockeys have to levitate. If they're going a sprint, it's like 7 furlongs. If they go a mile, that's once around the track. That's a mile. They have to literally levitate over the horse when they're riding. And if you watch as a jockey, I said, "Gus, you ever watch a jockey?" He goes, "Well, I've seen a couple races. I've seen the Derby." I said, "Those jockeys aren't moving. They're standing still, levitating over the horse. And their legs, the only thing they had to hang on to is their feet in the stirrups. That's it. They don't have a seatbelt. Their hands are hanging onto the reins. One hand's on the mane of the horse, and the other hand is on the mane. It's on the reins, holding the reins going to the bit in the mouth of the horse. They hang on to the mane of the horse so they could feel every motion of that horse. If he starts jerking around and stuff, they know. That's how they can feel the horse's movement in the mane, the horse's mane. I know this because I was a part owner in a syndicate, and I got talking to some of the jockeys. That is probably, these guys aren't pussies. These guys are machines. Can you imagine? Legs like bricks, solid muscle. To levitate over a horse going 40 miles an hour. And they're to your left and they're right, and they're all jockeying for the best position on the track. And when you get down to the final stretch, Gus, they're like balls to the wall. If you look at the Kentucky Derby, it's a wall of horses, 20 horses in that field, and they're tearing down the center of that racetrack, balls to the wall, bumping up against each other. That's a dangerous fucking sport. So, Gus, you don't know what you're talking about. Thoroughbred races, thoroughbred jockeys that ride those thoroughbreds. That's probably the most dangerous single person sport in the entire world. being a jockey on a horse. Because all it takes is one fall. And I've seen falls. I've been following races. I've been following thoroughbred racing since 1999. I've seen horses go down. They'll either trip or unfortunately they might break a leg. It happens. It's the nature of the sport. You know, there might be a tendon or a bone that's weak that they can't detect before the race, and the horse snaps his leg. It's awful. It's an awful thing to see. A beautiful animal like that snap his leg and go down. I've seen horses snap their legs and go down, and their body goes into shock. And they try to get back up on three legs and run again because they're forward motion horses. They think forward motion, and then they can't get up and they go back down. They generally euthanize the horse right on the track. It's the most humane thing to do. So I said to Gus, I said, you don't have no idea what you're talking about. Your boys playing soccer, that's a pussy sport compared to thoroughbred racing. 0 to 35 to 40 miles an hour in 8 strides or less. That's moving. That is moving. So if you don't know anything, I said, Gus, so you ought to investigate a sport before you start shooting your mouth off that they're a bunch of pussies. Years ago, I dated a girl in high school, and she had pleasure horses. She had Tennessee Walker, and I think her mother had a Siberian. I think that was the name of the horse. It was a breed. I think it was called Siberian. But Tennessee Walker, they're bomb-proof. You could throw hand grenades in front of it, and it won't freak out. It'll just go, really? Give me another carrot. You got any more carrots? You got any more apples? Real calm, real calm. That's why they call them pleasure horses, just for riding around. Quarter horses are built for speed. You see those guys racing. You can tell a quarter horse a mile away because they got a big ass on them. They're just 0 to 300 yards real fast. And the gal I was dating said, Gary, you want to go riding with us sometime? I said, yeah. You know, I was at the stable with her one afternoon. I said, yeah, I'll ride with you. I said, she goes, well, we don't have any. My mom and I have my horse, and then she has her horse. No one else has a horse. And there was a lady a little bit further down, and she had rescued a thoroughbred off the track. A lot of people do that. They rescue these thoroughbred racehorses that are retired. They're retired racehorses, and they use them for pleasure horses. I was 18 years old. I had no idea what I was getting on. I've been on horses before, because, you know, Andrea, she was my girlfriend. She was dated her in high school for 3 years, and I had ridden horses at her mom and dad's stable. But and it was a piece of cake. But I'd never been on a thoroughbred. And the lady 3 stalls down, she goes, Gary, you can ride my horse. It's a thoroughbred. I said, oh, what's a thoroughbred? She goes, oh, it's just a different kind of horse. It's a different breed. They're built for speed. They're the ones that race. And at the time, I didn't know about racing. First time I saw any kind of a race was the Kentucky Derby back in 1999. She goes, go easy now. Don't kick the horse. Don't ask it to move. It'll go on its own. Get on the horse and just be careful. Just be careful. And you might want to wear a helmet. I said, I've never worn a helmet before. She was, put a helmet on. So I put a vest on, this protective vest, like it's a bulletproof vest, and a helmet. Andrea and her mother didn't have a vest or a helmet on. And I'm walking along with this horse, and Andrea goes, come on, hurry up, Gary. And I was way behind. I was afraid to kick the horse. I was afraid to ask the horse. You can ask it by shaking the reins. Well, I shook the reins a little bit. That fucking horse just took off. He went that way, and I went that way. It happened that fast. He bolted, and I flew off the back of the horse. Now, I was 18 years old, and I played sports. I played ice hockey, and I was physically fit. So when I hit the ground, yeah, I got some bruises, but I didn't break anything. Can you imagine being someone who rescues a thoroughbred off the track and wants to train it to run, to do a pleasure horse move with you and your friends while you're drinking tea or wine, and you go pleasure riding through the wilderness, and you get on a thoroughbred? Oh, I can handle a thoroughbred. And you're in your 50s or 60s. You get thrown off one of those fuckers in your 50s and 60s, you're going to break something. You'll get maimed. You'll be paraplegic, quadriplegic. Those things don't fuck around. So I think Gus walked away today with a little bit of education. There's nothing more exciting and more exhilarating, in my humble opinion, than being along the rail at the finish line of any given racetrack, because I've been to a bunch of tracks in America, and standing down there at the finish line and looking to your left as they're coming around the final turn, thundering down the stretch. Nostrils flared, ears pinned back, tearing ass, 5 or 6 wide, tearing for the finish line. Who can get there first? And then you can hear the hoofs hitting the ground. There's no sound that can match it. And they're thundering, literally thundering down the stretch, and just 40 miles an hour blown by. It's an experience that everyone should try it or go to a racetrack. It's one of these sports you love it or hate it. Most people I've introduced to thoroughbred horse racing love it the first time they see it. It gets in their blood. Especially if you got a few bucks on the race. You're screaming your lungs out for that horse to win. It's something. It's something to see. That's why I love the sport. Anyway, that's all I got. I want to get off of here. I got to eat. I wasn't supposed to intermittent fast today. I just didn't have time to eat, and I haven't eaten anything in 22 hours. So I want to eat some chicken, and I gotta eat a couple oranges. Anyway, I gotta enjoy your Friday evening. I hope you had a good day at work. Thank God it's Friday for people that have real jobs and have weekends off. Take care of yourselves and each other. Hope you learned something today about horses. Peace out.